Hello, and welcome to Quebec Art Company presents QACStage Pass, your ticket to an old-timey radio-ish online theater extravaganza that will transport you from your workaday world into a universe of entertainment the likes of which you've never seen or heard, at least since COVID-19. Once a month, and until further notice, QACStage Pass will present a classic radio drama reimagined and retrofitted to the internet age through the magic of Zoom. The performance will begin after a brief word from our sponsor.
Introducing new and improved, nothing to be ashamed of bathroom tissue. Now softer than a duck's bill.
Oi, oi.
Quebec Art Company is proud to make the Backstage Pass go smoothly.
And now, come with me, my friends, as we descend into the world of the unknown and the forbidden. Down in the depths where the veil of time is lifted and the supernatural reigns as king. Come with me and listen to the tale of the Black Figurine of Death.
No. I warn you. Stay away from me. That's Sawyer.
It couldn't happen again. It just couldn't.
Is that you, David?
Yes, Helen. It's me and Mary.
I heard a shot.
So did we. At first, I thought it might have been you, David.
No, it wasn't me. I thought it might have been you, Helen.
No, it wasn't me. I thought it might have been...
It obviously was none of us.
But who could it have been?
It must have been Sawyer.
He was out late tonight. I found him out in the mausoleum about an hour ago.
Here's his room.
Try the door.
It's open.
On the floor. Is he?
Yes. He's dead.
Through all the years of man's existence, no matter what he has learned or has been taught from generation to generation, still he carries in the innermost depths of his mind a certain fear of the darkness, a fear of the night, which is somehow associated with death, and, in actuality, is the fear of death itself. Each of us in our lifetime will probably come into contact with some psychic phenomenon, either directly or indirectly, through the experience of a relative or an acquaintance, an experience never to be forgotten. And about such an experience is our story tonight. They were all there the night she died, standing at the front of her bed. David, Joyce, Helen, and Mary. Mabel Johnson's head was cushioned on a pillow, and in her hand she held a figurine.
We're all here, Aunt Mabel.
I'm dying, you fool. I'm not blind. I can see you're all here. My 3 remaining relatives. Helen, Joyce, and David.
Mary's here as well.
Yes, and Mary.
You sent for us, Aunt Mabel.
Of course I did. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, would you?
Oh, now, Aunt Mabel, there's no need
Be
to...
quiet. Be quiet, all of you.
We only want to
Be
be
quiet.
here and...
I didn't ask for a speech, young man. I know exactly what you want, and I'll do the talking if you don't mind. I must speak to all of you while I still have time.
Oh, why don't you rest, Aunt Mabel?
No rest. You'd like to see that, would you, Joyce? And David, and Helen, and Mary? What? No answer from any of you? I know why you can't say anything. Because it's the truth.
Now see here, Aunt Mabel.
Listen to me, young lady. Just because you married my nephew does not make me have to like you.
David, are you going to let her speak to me like that?
Of course he is, dearie. He knows what side the butter is breaded on. They all want the same thing. These last years of my life, you have all left me alone. You've had more important things to do. That is, until tonight. Ha! Tonight, you're all here because you know I'm dying. You've come here like a pack of wolves, waiting for me to die, waiting for your chance to inherit my estate.
Oh, no, that isn't true, Aunt Mabel.
Oh, isn't it? I think it is. Don't worry. You'll inherit the estate, the three of you. But in the end, you'll wish you never had.
What do you mean, Aunt Mabel?
Oh, though I'll die, you will all see me again. All of you who hated me, and you will know of my presence when you see this.
Why, that's just a little figurine, Aunt Mabel.
Oh, you will wish you'd never seen it before I'm through. You will wish that you'd never known me, that you'd never been born. Before you die, you will all learn what fear is. You'll learn how it feels to be alone.
Aunt Mabel?
Is she?
Yes, she's dead.
Oh, no, she can't be.
She's dead, all right.
What's that?
Something dropped out of her hand.
Why, it's the little figurine. The little black figurine.
The little black figurine lay there on the floor. It had fallen from Aunt Mabel's hand just as she died, and when it had struck the floor, it had broken into 3 pieces. The pieces fit together perfectly, much like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. It was a queer little black figurine, its arms raised in supplication, a look of fear upon its face. There was something frightening about it. 3 days later, Mabel Johnson was buried in the family mausoleum at the north end of the estate. A week after, the 3 of them, and Mary, all gathered together at the old house with Carl Sawyer, the executor of the estate, for the reading of the will.
As you know, your aunt appointed me as executor of her estate and left instructions that the 3 main heirs gather 10 days after her demise in this house for the reading of the will.
You told us that earlier, Mr. Sawyer.
Oh, yes, so I did. You must be Mary. Are you all seated comfortably?
Quite comfortably, Mr. Sawyer.
It's a rather long will, you know. Now I will begin. I, Mabel Johnson, being of sound mind and body, do make, ordain, and publish this instrument as my last will and testament.
Mr. Sawyer, why don't you just tell us about the will,
Well, that's a rather unusual procedure, David.
Oh, David's right, Mr. Sawyer. It will save a lot of time and trouble.
Well, perhaps you're right. Let me see. Now, referring to the disposition of the monies and property, it is to be divided equally among the 3 of you. Of course, there are certain gifts to the servants.
Naturally.
Yes, naturally. There is a considerable amount of money to be divided even after taxes. Each of you will be independent for life.
I can't understand Aunt Mabel willing us the entire estate. The night she died,
Now, Joyce, let Mr. Sawyer finish.
Contrary to what you may think, your Aunt Mabel was really quite fond of you.
Yes, that was definitely the impression I got.
Is that all to the will, Mr. Sawyer?
No, of course, you realize that if one of you were to die, his or her share of the estate would be divided between the two remaining heirs. And there is one other provision I do not quite understand.
yes?
Oh, yes, yes. Let me read it, please. The heirs are to reside in the estate for a period of 1 year. If it is not done, their claim to the estate will be nullified, and they are to be left without a penny. Unfortunately, they were present very infrequently during the last years of my life.
That's a rather strange provision.
Yes, it is, isn't it? However, as executor of your aunt's will, it is up to me to make sure the provisions are carried out, and, believe me, I feel a deep sense of duty to your late aunt.
They discussed the will until the early hours of the morning. Sawyer was persuaded to spend the night so he could return to the city in the morning. Retiring to their rooms, each considered the implications of the strange provision as their aunt's final words lingered in their minds. The house became quite silent, as the only sound was the ticking of the clock. Then a knock at the door. Standing outside David's door in the hallway was a housekeeper.
Mr. David,
Yes, Emily.
I'm sorry to disturb you so late, but it was rather important. I thought it best to bring it to your attention immediately.
What is it, Emily?
I found this in my bedroom tonight.
What is it, Emily?
Here.
Why, it's a little black figurine. Just like the one my aunt had.
It frightened me so. So I came to you, Mr. David.
How do you think it got there, Emily?
I have no idea. Since the death of your aunt,
What is it, Emily?
well, there is something strange going on in this house, Mr. David. Something's not quite right. And I think I know who might be behind it all.
Who's talking out there?
We're sorry to have disturbed you, Mr. Sawyer.
Oh, it's you, David, and Emily. You're up rather late, aren't you?
Yes, Mr. Sawyer. I was just going to bed. If you'll excuse me.
Good night, Emily.
Good night, Mr. David. And I will see you in the morning.
Well, I suppose I'd better get back to bed too. Good night, David.
Good night, Mr. Sawyer.
Emily had been on the point of saying something to David. Something that was important enough to her to make a special trip to his room. He decided he would ask her in the morning and fell into a restless sleep.
Sawyer, I heard someone scream.
So did I, David.
Helen, I thought I heard someone scream.
I know I did. There's David and Mr. Sawyer. Maybe they can tell us what happened.
Did you two hear anything?
It was a scream. At first, I thought it might have been you, Helen.
No, it wasn't me. I thought it might have been you, Joyce.
Oh, no, it wasn't me. I thought it might have been you. Mary?
What in the world is all the fuss about?
Didn't you hear that scream?
I think it came from the service quarters.
Emily!
What did you say, David?
Nothing. It will keep. Come on.
Do you think it was the housekeeper, David?
It has to be.
Maybe she was just startled or something.
Well, we will see in a moment.
That's her room just down the hall.
I hope it's nothing serious.
Serious enough to make her scream. Emily!
Emily, is anything wrong?
Try the door, David. Maybe it's unlocked.
It's open.
The light's on in there.
It's not in bed.
On the floor.
Is she?
Maybe she fainted.
Oh, yes, that must be it. She screamed because something frightened her.
Yes, and then she fainted.
No. She's dead.
Look, right beside her, there is a little black figurine.
A little black broken figurine.
Though the police came out and went over everything, there were no clues to follow. They said Emily had been strangled, but there was no indication as to who might have done it. The police continued their investigation for almost a month, but at the end of that time, all they could write down in their casebook was murder unsolved.
It's been almost 6 weeks, and we still don't have any answers about Emily's death.
The police said they'd never be able to find out who did it unless something new turned up.
And it probably won't.
The whole thing frightens me. I still remember Aunt Mabel's dying words. And though I die, you will see me again. All of you who have hated me, and you will know my presence when you see this.
Oh, it makes me shudder every time I think of it.
I've been thinking about this too, Joyce. I wonder if she could come back.
Do you mean come back after death?
Yes,
Don't be a fool, Helen. When a person dies, they're dead.
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, you shouldn't talk that way, Helen. It's frightening.
And really rather silly.
Perhaps. But we can all agree that something is not right here.
Well, people being murdered is certainly not right.
And being forced to live in this house for a year.
Would you come out with me to the mausoleum?
What? Why?
Something that I just want to check, that's all.
What in the world would you need checking in that awful mausoleum?
That Aunt Mabel is really where she said she would be.
Oh, really, Helen? You can't possibly be serious.
If it's that important, I'll go with you, Helen.
And I'll go with you, David.
Well, I won't go.
That's all right, Joyce. No one expects you to.
Will you be all right here alone, Joyce?
Oh, yes, I will remain in my room.
She won't be alone, will she?
What do you mean by that? If you're suggesting... Oh, right, the other servants.
I've always had an interest in the supernatural. You know, there are certain things that can happen, psychic phenomenon, that you have no normal or natural explanation.
I've never seen any.
Nor have I. But what's to say that Aunt Mabel can't return?
Really, Helen. Aunt Mabel was a miserable old enough woman when she was alive. Let's hope she can't return.
I can't believe there's any chance of people coming back from the dead.
Well, how do you explain what happened to Emily?
Oh, I see. If the police can't explain it, then it must be supernatural.
Well, then how did she happen to be in the possession of...
A little black broken figurine.
Or.
We're here. Come on, let's go inside.
Do you have the key?
Here it is. Open the door.
It's a good thing we brought these flashlights.
Yes, it's pretty dark in here. Shall we go in?
I still don't see any reason for coming in here, Helen.
There may not be. But then again.
Nothing's been disturbed in here. It looks just like it did when she was placed here.
Wait a minute. This wasn't here the day she was buried.
What?
This.
That's strange. I didn't see that when I came in.
You probably weren't looking over there, but I was.
What is it?
Another little black figurine. Broken, just like the others.
Feeling uneasy, they quickly locked up the mausoleum again and went back to the house, wondering if Aunt Mabel was striking back from beyond the grave. About 11 o'clock, they retired to their rooms. David, whose imagination was filled with unseen eyes in the dark, waiting for him to fall asleep, tossed and turned until he finally got out of bed at 3 o'clock. Something drew him towards the mausoleum, a compulsion, an inner force over which he had no control. Upon arrival, he received a distinct shock, for the door was open, and there was a circle of light behind it. As he entered, someone inside whirled around with a gun held in his hand.
David, what are you doing here?
I might ask you the same question, Mr. Sawyer.
Well, I began to wonder. I don't believe in people coming back after they die, but...
Is that the reason for the gun?
I didn't know what I'd find. I wanted to be safe, that's all.
And what did you find, Mr. Sawyer?
Nothing.
Nothing. Do you mean you didn't see? But where did it go?
David, what is it?
But it was right there, only hours ago.
What was right there, David?
Nothing.
I see. By the way, David, what are you doing out here?
I was restless. Helen thinks everything that's happened has some supernatural significance. All her talk made me nervous.
I see. And do you think that there is something supernatural about the way Emily died?
I don't know, Mr. Sawyer. I just don't know anymore.
Well, let's hope that your Aunt Mabel is resting peacefully. She deserves some peace. Wouldn't you agree, David?
Let's get out of here and go back to the house. You are welcome to stay the night. I doubt I'll be able to sleep, though. I wonder.
Yes, we are all wondering what happened to the little black broken figurine, and who or what is behind all this. Could it be Sawyer or David? Is it Helen or Joyce? Could it be Aunt Mabel? And what about Mary? There's something about Mary.
David, are you there?
Yes, here in the library.
Mr. Sawyer told me you were down here. What's the matter?
I can't sleep.
Oh, David, I talked to Mr. Sawyer for almost 10 minutes. Excuse me? And he's quite convinced that, well,
Go on, Joyce.
he said he thinks that you're behind everything.
What did you say to that?
I told him that he was wrong.
Thanks for your confidence, Joyce.
The more that I think about it, the more that I think that Helen...
That Helen is behind everything?
Oh, no, that she might be right with what she said.
That Aunt Mabel has come back from the dead.
Yes, I mean, how else do you explain any of this?
Yes, how do you explain any of this?
Mary, Joyce was just telling me that Sawyer thinks I'm behind all of this.
Well, someone is behind this, and it's usually the person throwing the accusations around, trying to confuse and pit people against one another.
I'd keep an eye on Sawyer if I were you.
We've only Joyce's word that Sawyer said.
Oh, do you think he's behind it, David?
I'm not sure.
But you must have some reason for it.
I went out to the mausoleum tonight about an hour ago. Sawyer was out there. He had a gun in his hand.
Oh, perhaps he was just curious.
Why should he get curious at 3 a.m?
And what were you doing out there?
And why did Sawyer have a gun?
It does seem rather odd, but...
No, I warn you, stay away from me.
That's Sawyer!
This couldn't happen again, it just couldn't.
Is that you, David?
Yes, Helen, it's me and Mary.
I heard a shot.
So did we.
At first I thought it might have been you, David.
No, it wasn't me. I thought it might have been you, Helen.
No, it wasn't me. I thought it might have been...
It obviously was none of us.
But who could it have been?
It must have been Sawyer.
He was out late tonight. I found him out in the mausoleum about an hour ago.
Here's his room.
Try the door.
It's open.
On the floor.
Is he?
Yes. He's dead.
Sawyer lay there on the floor, sprawled in a grotesque position of death. By one outstretched hand was a gun, and by the other, broken into 3 pieces, was a little black figurine. Helen called the police, and they said they would be out as soon as they could. The 3 of them, and Mary, went downstairs to the living room.
I was right. It is Aunt Mabel who is behind all of this.
It must be. There is no other explanation.
But there is another possibility. Helen, we 3 were together when Sawyer was shot.
Don't be ridiculous. I immediately joined you in the hallway after.
Now let's not let our imaginations get the better of us.
Oh, there must be some rational explanation.
I told you before. There are certain things which cannot be explained. The deaths of Emily and Sawyer prove that.
You still don't think that Sawyer was behind it all, do you, David?
Hardly.
Will or no will, I'm leaving here now. I'm not going to stay around here and be killed like the others. I'm going upstairs to pack.
I'm going to leave too. David, what about you?
I don't know. I still can't make myself believe.
There's nothing to believe. We're staying.
Please, David. I couldn't bear the thought of anything happening to our family. And Mary. David!
Stay here.
No, I'm coming with you.
So am I. I won't remain here alone. She has to be all right. Helen!
She doesn't answer.
Helen, where are you?
Helen, answer us.
Her door is open.
Oh, she'll be dead just like the others.
No, Joyce. She's not here.
Well, we heard her scream. She must be somewhere.
But where?
The mausoleum. Aunt Mabel came and took her back to the mausoleum.
I'll go to the mausoleum to see if you're right, to see if Helen's dead body will be found there.
I'm coming with you.
So am I. I won't remain in this house alone. Why don't we wait until the police come, David?
If this is something supernatural, then they wouldn't be able to help us anyway.
Just like they couldn't find any clues in Emily's death.
Oh, David!
What's the matter?
The mausoleum door's open.
You can stay here if you want.
No, I'm coming with you.
So am I. I won't remain in these creepy woods alone.
Stay close to me.
I will. I don't like it in here, David. It's so dark.
Neither do I, Joyce. Neither do I.
But you're going to remain here for some time.
That's Ellen's voice.
That's right. Turn the flashlight on. You'll see me then.
We thought you were...
Dead? Hardly. But you two and Mary will be very soon.
She has a gun, David.
That's right. Sawyer's gun. I've planned this very carefully, David. When the police arrive, they will find you all dead, and I'll be wounded. I'll tell them Sawyer was behind it all, and he killed both of you. And Mary, out here, and then he came into the house searching for me. There was a fight, the gun went off, and he died.
Then it was you who killed Emily and Sawyer.
Yes, and I'm gonna kill you too. You don't think I believed all that hokum I fed you about Aunt Mabel coming back, do you? Of course not, but it served its purpose. Now you'll serve yours.
Helen? Helen, look out behind you.
How stupid do you think I am?
Aunt Mabel's coffin. It's slipping. Get out of the way.
Get out of the way, Helen.
Get out of the way.
Is she?
Yes. She's dead. Crushed by the coffin of
Aunt
Aunt Mabel.
Mabel.
I wonder,
what, Joyce?
do you remember what Aunt Mabel said when she was dying?
That she'd come back and settle with us.
Yes, but
I wonder if it was an accident. If the coffin just slipped out of the crypt or
whether Aunt Mabel really did come back.
Thank you for tuning in to QACStage Pass, brought to you by the Nothing to be Ashamed of Bathroom Tissue Company. Introducing new and improved Nothing to be Ashamed of Bathroom Tissue. Now softer than a duck's bill.
Oi, oi.
Quebec Art Company is proud to make the Backstage Pass go smoothly. Join us again next month for another installment of QACStage Pass, when we present The Visitor.